What can we expect now and in the future from the Buffalo Bills 2025 rookie class? I'm exploring that today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. Excited for our conversation today. I want to look at this Bills 2025 draft class through a very specific lens, and that is discussing their year one role, their year three role, and ask myself the question, why would this player fail? And so I don't really need to explain to you what I mean by what the expectations for year one should be and what the expectations for year three should be. But I do want to explain why I want to look at these players through the lens of why would this player fail? And this takes me back to a quote from Brandon Beane a few years ago that has really stuck with me. And Beane said that as they evaluate prospects for the draft, they like to ask themselves the question, what would cause this player to fail? What scenario in our building would cause them to fail? What traits is this player going to have to overcome? And he actually went on and gave an example of Levi Wallace and said, Levi Wallace didn't have dynamic physical upside, but he had elite intangibles, want to, and instincts. So I want to look at each of these rookies through the lens of why would they fail? What do they need to overcome? Or what could be the reason it doesn't work out? So year one role, year three role, and why would they fail? That's what we're talking about today for each of the Bills' 9 2025 NFL draft picks. We'll start with the top pick, Maxwell Harrison, first rounder, corner out of Kentucky. Year one, I think Maxwell Hairston is in line to start for this team. He's a mature player with zone instincts. And I think that says a lot about his capacity to step in and play right away. If you can play in zone coverage with the level of comfort that Maxwell Hairston showcases on tape at Kentucky, I think you could step in and start. And he's really, really good in terms of processing and feeling route combinations and knowing how to space the field and how to squeeze and layer coverage in zone. And he's got all the physical upside in the world to be a good man coverage corner. So I think he's got the pedigree to come in and start right away for the Bills. And Brandon Beane, right after he drafted Hairston in his press conference after night one, he was asked if he felt good about players like Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson being on the roster in case Maxwell Hairston's not ready to start as a rookie. And he said, we feel good that we have those guys if he's not ready. It's an open competition. May the best man win. If he doesn't start right away, maybe he will later in the season. And then specifically said he gives the Bills something that they don't have in the room. I think there's an intent for him to start. Now, I know Tre'Davious White is on this roster. And I think Tre'Davious White will be a great benefit to Maxwell Hairston. But ultimately, the ceiling lies with your first-round pick, Maxwell Hairston. And so I think that Hairston's going to start as a rookie. And I hope he does. So that's my year one expectation. My year three expectation for Maxwell Hairston, impact starter. This guy has a playmaker's mentality. He's aggressive. He's a ball hawk. I think if you listen to anyone talk Maxwell Hairston, they will have those three things as the obvious strengths of his game. And I also love how complementary his skill set is to what the Bills have in Christian Benford. Benford's a bigger body, physical, can handle those X receivers, where Hairston, maybe not the best candidate to face up against those X receivers, but the twitchier, speedier guys, you love having Hairston. So I think those are great complementary skill sets. You look at this tandem now and into the future, there's a lot to be excited about. I hope that we are talking about after 3 seasons, boy, how are the Bills going to pay both Christian Benford and Maxwell Hairston? I hope that's the conversation that we're having. So now for the part of the conversation that's not that fun, it's, well, why would Maxwell Harrison fail? Only thing I can point to is a lack of physical development. Now, look, there's always some X factors here, and I say this a lot with draft picks. You never know how a young man in their early 20s is going to respond to having more money and more free time than they've ever had in their entire life. You just don't know. So you can apply that to any one of these players. So short of that and short of injuries, why would Maxwell Hairston fail? I guess it would be due to a lack of physical development. He's 183 pounds. That's what he was at the combine. I understand that reports are that he's over 190, like 192. But that would be about it, where the lack of physical development leads to too many issues and he gets big boyed. But I point to Denzel Ward. I think Denzel Ward is a very good physical comp for Maxwell Harrison. Denzel Ward, the number 4 pick in 2018, 4 Pro Bowls in 7 years. He's 5'10" and 7/8, 183 pounds with a wingspan of 74 3/4 inches. Harrison's taller at 5'11", 5'11 and a quarter, 183 pounds, the exact same weight, and he's got more wingspan, 76 and 7/8 inches. So I get, about an extra half inch of height, same weight, and 2 inches of wingspan. So if that's going to be the problem with Hairston, at least I can point to a player like Denzel Ward and the success that he's had. I can point to a guy like Trent McDuffie and the success that he's had. And the fact that Hairston has already added some weight. And the concern with adding weight is that you lose some athleticism. This guy ran a 4.28. Put on 10 pounds and all of a sudden you run a 4.33. We're going to be okay. We are going to be okay. I'm excited about Hairston. I really am. I like the skill set. I like the mindset. I like how he can fit into this defense. So that's the Hairston conversation. Let's do the TJ Sanders conversation. Bill's 2nd round pick, D tackle out of South Carolina. For year 1, this is my ideal role for TJ Sanders. Have the 3rd most snaps among defensive tackles. I think that's reasonable. Looking at last year's snap distribution for defensive tackles, Ed Oliver had 603 during the regular season. Daquan Jones, 547. Then Dwayne Carter had 315. That was the 3rd most. Austin Johnson, 307. Quentin Jefferson, 113. Jordan Phillips, 109. Zion Logue, 36. Elianku, 34. I want, for when we look back at this season, for TJ Sanders to have the 3rd most snaps among the defensive tackles. Number 41 pick in the draft. I love the skill set. I think that's very reasonable. Year 3, my vision here is this potentially your Ed Oliver replacement? It's the last year of Ed Oliver's deal. So when TJ Sanders finishes his 3rd season, as of now, Ed Oliver is scheduled to be a free agent after that year. Is it the replacement? Can you start TJ Sanders next to Ed Oliver? Perhaps I should sum it up like this. I want us to be craving 500 plus snaps per year out of TJ Sanders by the end of year 3. And for us to be well positioned for life after Ed Oliver, if that's the direction the team goes at 3 technique in the form of TJ Sanders. So year 1, be 3rd on this team in snaps among defensive tackles. By year 3, let's be talking about this as, well, I think the Bills can let Ed Oliver walk because TJ Sanders is here and he's awesome. But at a minimum, 500 snaps and us loving that he's on the field for 500 snaps. So why would TJ Sanders fail? I'm not sure there's anything glaring about TJ Sanders' skill set that has me concerned. Maybe it's the pairing with Ed Oliver, although I've been talking since the draft, like, do not sleep on TJ Sanders' run defense. But maybe that reduces the role because they don't think that's an ideal pairing together. But I'm not even super concerned about that. Dwayne Carter played 315 snaps for this team last year. Quentin Jefferson off the street late in the season played 113 snaps. I'm not super concerned. I think the Bills are going to want to rotate. They're going to get value out of him. I love the skill set of Sanders. So unless it's just, it doesn't click for him or he doesn't apply himself, I'd be very surprised if Sanders wasn't a really good part of this defensive line rotation for a long, long time. All right, folks, coming up next, Landon Jackson, Deion Walker, Jordan Hancock, plenty to get into. We'll do that here in just a moment, so folks, be sure to stick with me. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I actually had a lot of fun on FanDuel over the weekend, betting on those Game 7s. We had the Rockets and Warriors. We had the Nuggets and Clippers. And that Nuggets and Clippers game, it was a blowout, but I had a lot of fun watching it to the end because I had a little action on the over for the scoring in that game, and it hit, and that made it really, really fun, made it more exciting to watch a Game 7, which is already exciting. So which players are showing up in the biggest moments? And how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action is unfolding? If you got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's continue this conversation. Looking next at Landon Jackson, Bills' third-round pick, defensive end out of Arkansas. My year one role for Landon Jackson is to be a key depth player. I think it's going to be Rousseau and Bosa on the edge, but I think Jackson can factor in. I'm looking at about 250 snaps. That would be about 15 per game on average. Looking at the snap distribution at defensive end last year, Greg Rousseau, 736, Epinesa, 613, Dwan Smoot, 322, Von Miller, 279, Casey Tuhill, 249, Javon Solomon, 135. I think this will be spread out a little bit differently. I think you can cut Bosa snaps probably in half. You can cut Epinesa snaps about in half, give a bunch of that to Bosa. Smoot's not around. Miller's not around. You feel like that's where you can absorb a bunch of snaps for Landon Jackson. Obviously, Michael Hoyt will factor in at some point. But I think he can come in and give this defense about 250 snaps. I think it's a reasonable year one role and expectation for Landon Jackson. Year three, I would say he has the upside to start for sure opposite of Greg Rousseau. And I think the style of player he could be is, at a minimum, a more consistent A.J. Epinesa. More explosive than Epinesa. More playmaking upside than Epinesa. Epinesa certainly has a couple of moments every year. You wish they showed up more consistently. I think Landon Jackson can maybe be like the best version of that role. So why would Landon Jackson fail? I think he's got a relatively high floor with plenty of ceiling. I guess it would come down to the consistent application of traits. He's a guy that has good length, heavy hands. I think he's a very self-aware player, but the one thing that anybody talks about with Landon Jackson is that he's kind of tightly wound, not super bendy. So as long as he remains a self-aware player and understand that he's a play-through contact guy and not a run-around contact guy, I think he's going to be just fine. High character, good pedigree. I'm excited for Landon Jackson. I think he's going to be a good player for the Bills for a number of years, and that should factor in pretty immediately with about, I think, 15 snaps per game. I think that's where he can land when it's all said and done in 2025. Next up is fourth-round pick, Deion Walker, D-tackle out of Kentucky. Year one role, assuming everything is good to go with the back. Come in and compete with Dwayne Carter for snaps as defensive tackle 4. And then once Larry Ogunjobi is available from suspension after 6 games. We'll see, right? We'll see what happens. But like I said already, Oliver Jones, that's your starters. TJ Sanders, I said I want him to get the 3rd most snaps this year at D tackle, which leaves Carter and Walker in the mix. And I want to see Walker, make it tough on who's going to get those snaps on game day between him and Carter as the 4th guy in the rotation, at least initially. By year 3, I'd like for Walker as a 4th-round pick to be a high-quality reserve, maybe a potential starter, a guy that you look at and think 350-plus snaps per year, and we're happy about him getting that as a minimum. Obviously, there's ceiling here. Even as a guy that has some concerns about Deion Walker, which are well documented, I also acknowledge the ceiling. I've always acknowledged the ceiling. And so let's hope that the Bills certainly are high on him. Brandon Beane has been certainly singing his praises and talking about coming out of 2023, a 1st-round type player. You get him in the 4th round, get this guy healthy and unleash that potential that you saw. So year 1, be competitive for snaps as the 4th defensive tackle. Year 3, high impact reserve, potential starter, a guy that is on the field for every bit of 350 plus snaps a year. So why would Deion Walker fail in Buffalo? Well, he's 6'7". He's been playing at 340 plus pounds. He's got a back injury. And so that's always something to be worried about. Big dudes that are tall, with a lot of weight, with a back injury. You don't love that. I think also that he doesn't develop the functional power in his lower half. I don't think he can make a living as a top-heavy guy that can't recruit his lower half when necessary for functional strength. So he'll need to figure that piece out. But then through that, I guess I have a concern about just finding the right playing weight and style. At Kentucky, he's 6'7", probably played closer to 350, and he's kind of a finesse style player. Well, do you want him to cut weight because that's going to help with potentially the back and being available? But does that fit his style? Does he need that mass? Like, there's a needle to thread there. And when you start talking body transitions, guys have to adapt. So as I'm thinking about, why it wouldn't work out, those are the things that are ringing loud in my head. It's the size with the back injury, the necessity to develop more functional power in his lower half, and then making sure that the Bills get him to playing weight and style that's most comfortable for him, and he can, be the type of player that the Bills drafted him to be. 5th-round pick, Jordan Hancock, defensive back out of Ohio State. Year 1, I think he can come in and be a core special teamer and a reserve defensive back. I think he's got a really nice profile as a special teams guy. You're watching him play as a safety at Ohio State and even in the slot. The trigger, the ability to play downhill, off contact, and tackle, I really, really like. I think that'll translate very well to special teams. Year 3 role, the Bills have been playing this dime defense. They have 2 different ways that they play it. They'll play it with 2 linebackers and 3 defensive linemen, or they'll play it with 4 defensive linemen and 1 linebacker, but either way, there's 6 DBs on the field. And even with Matt Milano back last year, they still played this dime look. I think that's part of the mix. Can Jordan Hancock be an ideal player for that type of role? I think so. I think that's that hybrid slot safety role that really works. And I think he can certainly be a higher ceiling guy in that role compared to what Cam Lewis has provided this team. Then the other part of this Jordan Hancock conversation, and I don't want to get too crazy here, but when we talk about year 3 roles, after year 3 for Jordan Hancock, that's when Taron Johnson's contract is set to expire. Is this a guy that gets time to incubate and you talk about him as a successor for Taron Johnson? We're talking way down the road here, but I think it's at least worth mentioning. So why would Jordan Hancock fail? I think it comes down to opportunity. Can he never dethrone Cam Lewis from this special teams hybrid role on defense? I think that would probably be one thing that comes to mind. And then from a skill set perspective, I thought the 2 biggest warts on his film were ball skills and man coverage. I don't think those are strengths of his game. But I think ultimately maybe the worst case arc for Jordan Hancock might be a Saron Neal role, which has a 5th-round pick to provide depth on defense, but also like impact on special teams. That's not a bad spot to be. So that's what I have down for Jordan Hancock. All right, we got 4 more draft picks to get to here on the other side of it, including some very intriguing depth players. And I want to talk about where they are now and into the future. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. The Skylight calendar has been a game changer for my family. I've got a 5-year-old that has all kinds of activities. Our weekends are full of all kinds of stuff that my wife has us doing. This calendar helps keep us organized. And my wife, she certainly appreciates not having to remind me all the time about all the different happenings. I can see the entire week clearly on that beautiful 15-inch HD screen. So check it out, folks, right now. Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. All right, folks, welcome back. Got 4 more prospects or draft picks to get to. I do want to remind you about the Herd Mentality Substack. I'm offering a ton of extra written content and film content. I've done film breakdowns on Elijah Moore, all the Bills draft picks. I still have 3 more to get to, which I will this week, but also additional written content that I'm having a lot of fun. It's been going great. We started this back in September, but one of the incentives for joining the Herd Mentality Substack, which there's a link in today's show notes to be part of, is you get access to our Discord channel. Our Discord channel is coming up on 1,800 members. It's basically a big organized group chat where we talk Bills, we talk NFL, what we're grilling. There's a book club, movies, all kinds of stuff. It's a really fun conversation, but part of that, every Wednesday night, I go live and I do what we call a herd hangout. And it could be trivia, it could be Q&A. But coming up, starting this week and several times throughout the summer, I'm doing Football 101. And I'm not going to pretend to be Bill Belichick teaching football, but I think I have a lot to offer. And I love this game. It's meant a lot to me. And I want to make sure that I take an opportunity to share my knowledge with anybody that wants to be there. So this Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time, we are doing basics of offensive football. We're going to do, of course, basics of defensive football, run schemes, pass rush, coverage shells, all different types of things to just share knowledge and, hopefully have people fall in love with this game to the level that I have. And so you get a lot from this Herd Mentality Substack subscription, including extra content, the Discord channel, and these Wednesday night hangouts. I'd love for you to be part of these Football 101 deals that we have going on. So join the Herd Mentality Substack. When you do that, you'll get an email that tells you how to join the Discord, and hopefully you'll do that so you can join us on Wednesday night and each Wednesday night moving forward, where we have a lot of fun. Again, this Football 101 stuff is going to be really cool, and I hope to see a bunch of people in there. I sent out a questionnaire to everyone in the Discord that was like, hey, what do you really want me to get into? And so it should be really fun. And again, I'm not trying to act like I'm Bill Belichick and I know everything there ever has been about football, but I do think I have something to offer, and I'm looking forward to doing that in the Discord. All right, let's continue our conversation here. Next up, 5th-round pick, Jackson Hawes, tight end, Georgia Tech. This one's so straightforward. I think is one of the easiest scouting reports you'll ever get on a player. Year 1, Jackson Hawes role, tight end 3, big-time impact blocker. Year 3 role, tight end 3 with being a big-time impact blocker. It's so straightforward. The guy excels at blocking, which I think shows up on offense, and I think it'll be a big part of the special teams equation. We're expecting more kick returns. Well, let's block well for those kick returns. Jackson Hawes is going to be an asset in that capacity. Why would Jackson Hawes fail? Well, if you have him do the things he does, he's going to be fine. We've seen this type of player have very meaningful careers in the NFL. We talk about Lee Smith. How about Mercedes Lewis? Chris Manhertz? Jackson Hawes can be exactly like those players. Mean a lot. especially for a Bills team that likes to use big people to block in the run game. And you can see the obvious path to special teams. So I'm excited to see how that comes together. All right, next up, we have 6th round pick Dorian Strong, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. The year 1 role here, make the team as a reserve corner and contribute on special teams if he's going to be active on game days. I want for Dorian Strong to make the Bills feel like it's not necessary to keep Dane Jackson on this active roster. I think he can do that. By year 3, be the CB3. Be the first in for Brentford or Maxwell Hairston on the outside. And then be a really good special teamer as well. The Bills have had to play their CB3 quite a bit, and Dane Jackson is the perfect example of that. Dane Jackson has never been a preferred starter by the Buffalo Bills, but in his 4 years on the team, 28 starts, at least 6 in 3 seasons. So you'd love to never have injuries at corner, but the Bills have had injuries at corner. And I think Dorian Strong can really solidify the depth for, years to come. So why would Dorian Strong fail in Buffalo? Well, I think the biggest concern is if the Bills don't roster him because they pick Tre'Davious White, Jamarcus Ingram, and Dane Jackson over him. And then they have to expose him to waivers, and he's plucked off waivers. Kind of like an Alex Austin situation. I had a 3rd-round grade on Dorian Strong, so I think pretty highly of him as a player. But I guess if there's one wart in his game, it's that he maybe doesn't have a superpower. Average athlete, good in all coverage techniques, good tackler, good ball skills. Is he amazing at any one thing? Probably not. But I think that sets a very high floor for what he can be in the NFL. So my biggest concern would be for some reason White, Ingram, and Jackson make this roster, and that stiff arms Dorian Strong, and then you can't keep him around. Let's get to Chase Lunt, 6th-round pick, offensive tackle out of UConn. Year 1 role. If you listen to the 53-man roster projection from yesterday, I didn't have him making the initial roster. So with that in mind, I hope that he can be retained on the practice squad. We've seen this quite a bit from these Bills late-round picks at offensive line, whether that's Luke Tenuta or Nick Broker or Jack Anderson. I worry that Chase Lunt is next there, even though I like Chase Lunt a lot more than any of those players. But if he needs to do one of 3 things. One of 3 things need to happen for Chase Lunt. Number 1, he's have to beat out a returning player. The Bills are bringing back all 9 of their offensive linemen from last year, so have to beat somebody out. The Bills will need to keep 10 offensive linemen, or he needs an injury. Now, I think he's one of those things away, like one injury away, and I think Chase Lunt's going to make this roster. So if he can stick around, be a reserve, show us promise in the preseason, which we've seen from Bills offensive linemen, Ryan Vandemark, Alec Anderson, Tylen Grable, all terrific in camp and preseason, and you knew it. Like if you watch the tape, you knew that those guys were playing well. I'd love for Chase Lunt to fall right into that. So year 3, if Chase Lunt's able to stick around, be a top 9 offensive lineman for this team, and then I think he could be a candidate for the big tight end role. Played tight end up until his senior year of high school. And I think from a body type perspective, he's not really a great candidate for tackle or guard. Well, how do you get the most out of him? Tight end, where when you watch Chase Lunt play, you think aggressive player, nimble feet, really good in space. All right, we can work with that at tight end. So why would Chase Lunt fail? It's the body type. It's the body type. And maybe you think this is crazy to talk about. It's really not. It's really not. When you look at the wingspan, this guy's 6'7.5" with a 0 percentile wingspan among offensive tackles in the NFL. 0 percentile. 7th percentile for arm length. He'd be an outlier. Then he's 6'7.5", and that doesn't really translate well to playing guard. So not really an ideal body type for tackle or guard, on top of some of the opportunity questions that I have based on the Bills returning their top 9 offensive linemen and some very intriguing developmental players there in Alec Anderson, Ryan Vandemark, Cedric Van Pran Granger, and Tylen Grable. Last one, 7th-round pick, wide receiver Kaden Prather out of Maryland. Year 1, again, I didn't have him making the initial roster, so that makes it tough to really consider what he would do in year one. I think the main thing is make it tough for him to not make the roster. Right? That's what he should be focusing on. Make it really tough for him to not stick around. And you hopefully get him back on the practice squad and then be on that Tyrell Shavers path more than you're on the Justin Shorter path. Like you watch Tyrell Shavers in preseason, you're like, okay, there's appeal here. There's good elements here. You watch Justin Shorter play in preseason and you don't see a guy with much polish being able to play the position. So year 3, if he's able to stick around, hopefully he can carve out a role. Special teams, providing physicality at receiver as a bigger body guy that also has some speed. Why would Kaden Prather fail in Buffalo? Probably opportunity more than anything. But he also needs to add more to his game. He's been a bit of a career underachiever in college that hasn't shown a lot of alignment versatility, and he's got to expand his route tree. So he's got his own development necessary in addition to some of the opportunity concerns. All right, folks, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed kind of looking at this rookie class from a different perspective. You know, we got plenty of opportunity here in this post-draft window to really break it down. And, of course, Bill's rookie camp is at the end of this week, so I wanted to have a lot of conversations about rookies this week on the podcast. So excited for the rest of this week. Excited to find out what numbers these guys are going to wear. You know, the jersey numbers, I'm always intrigued by that. So we'll get that at the end of the week as well. So plenty of content still to come this week. Don't miss anything. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.